Chimes Media, and I'm James Williams. Okay, we'll talk about Brexit. Tony Abbott's done a piece in the Spectator magazine about Brexit, and he's sort of reflecting much of what many of us who are Brexiteers believed in, or do believe in. Going back to the 2016 campaign, I campaigned in Portsmouth area, mainly in Portsmouth North. Portsmouth having a population of roughly about 200,000 people, and I personally visited 10,000 homes in the northern part of Portsmouth and some parts of Portsmouth South. So I spoke to a lot of people, delivered lots of leaflets, lost a lot of weight. Some of it's come back again, but I got the flavour of what people's opinion was. And if you take a comparative city like the neighbouring Southampton to Portsmouth, Portsmouth was more strongly pro-Brexit than Southampton was. I'd like to think I had a hand in that, but anyway, that's not the point. So the feeling I got from ordinary people was that they were forgotten about, neglected. No one's going to take any notice. Yeah, I'm voting Brexit, but what's the point? You know, they won't take any notice. And of course, when it happened, it was a shock and surprise, not just to those who were Ramoners, whatever you like to call them, but also the Brexiteers and the ordinary people, who I have to say do not often get listened to. You know, they don't. I've been a former politician. I was a councillor just for 4 years. That was long enough. I was doing 3 jobs, so I was wearing myself out. And I found one of the most common things is that, well, it doesn't matter if you're a councillor or whatever, is that the politicians get stuck in their own little circles and bubbles. It's a natural thing. It's not because they're necessarily corrupt or anything else like that, but they just listen to their own clique. And of course, lobby groups love that, because then they can exert a disproportionate amount of influence on them. And I noticed as well within Portsmouth, like the feminist groups, who weren't that many in number actually, but were always in on some committee somewhere. They were always influential, and at the end of the day, it was about getting resources and influencing change and making sure that not that women were represented, but were overrepresented in many cases. But not just any women. Women with the right kind of attitude. So if you had a conservative type woman, and you weren't necessarily favoured, and that you can see across the world. Now, going back to the Brexit thing, right? So basically, Tony Abbott was saying that the referendum result was perhaps the biggest ever vote of confidence in the United Kingdom. Yeah, as a country. But it was also about, this is from the ordinary people, we don't want to be dictated to by foreign powers. We fought wars against that kind of thing. We want to make our own rules and get our own sovereignty back. And what a lot of people are feeling, me as well, because I think I'm just one of the ordinary folk as well, is that we are losing our culture and our identity. I mean, they started basically saying, well, you don't have any culture. They've said that across the entire globe where they've tried to interfere with things. And I'm talking about a very pernicious, what seems to be a left-wing cabal. And they're not left-wing like, I just want the poor to have more money. These are very pernicious Marxian type left-wing who want to control, because at the end of the day, whatever regime you have in power, it's a form of hierarchy. So what they want is they want to have the controls of the reins of power, the access to resources, and to pick and choose who they like. It ends up very totalitarian, as it does every time, with, as in the past, in the 20th century in particular, has shown it, if nothing else, with millions and millions of people end up dead, either from oppression, starvation, it gets the worst of humanity out, and it's under the guise of being righteous and nice. Well, we've got a real battle across the world going on at the moment. It's kind of very worrying, because the ordinary people, the one I spoke to about when I was campaigning for Brexit, they're not included in the equation. They're the sort of, well, they're the fodder. They're the ones who provide the money, the taxation, resources, and they're the ones the tyrants, I would say, tyrants in waiting, wish to control. And it's not a case of the power of the people. Brexit showed the power of the people by voting for it, and it's kind of a narrow call. I think actually there may well have been some ballot rigging there. Some votes went astray or whatever it was. Wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying it did, but it wouldn't surprise me. It's on par with other things that go on. But the ordinary people are basically looked down upon by many politicians. I don't say politicians in particular, but by the left. They're just fodder, uneducated fodder. You see that with Trump being elected. Oh, they're all ignoramuses. The blue collar ignoramuses who voted for Trump. When I was speaking to people on the Brexit trail, the people who I met, and quite a few of them, had put a lot of thought into what it meant to them. They thought about it quite a lot. It wasn't a case of following some nebulous, cloud-minded leader or something. They were looking at and weighing it up on a personal issue. So I think it's very arrogant to dismiss them, just like the Trump supporters. They've had garbage presidents and policies for years that weren't working. America was going down the Swanee, the wealthiest country on earth, and people struggling, hadn't had any wage rises for 30 years or something. That's what they're missing out on. Anyway, basically, Tony Abbott, he was saying about like David Cameron. He said basically, if you go into a negotiation and are not prepared to walk away, it's not a negotiation, it's a surrender. That's what he said. When David Cameron went to Europe to say, well, can we have some little amendments to make it sweeter for us, and they told him to clear off, basically, because they knew basically that he wasn't genuine about it. He didn't think that people would vote for Brexit. He didn't think that. They knew he was on the same side as them. He wasn't convincing enough. And that's why he got sent away with nothing, and we ended up with the Brexit referendum. He was forced into a corner himself on that one. So we've got till it's March the 29th in 2019 when Brexit comes into play. And yeah, okay, you've got to keep your cards close to your chest. You can't reveal all you're trying to do, because obviously that affects your ability to negotiate in any strong position. But if there isn't any agreement, we go out under World Trade rules, World Trade Organization rules. World Trade rules means that Britain makes its own rules, sets its own tariffs or whatever it needs to do. But at the moment, you see, we've got no tariff arrangements with the EU. It's free trade. So what do we need to do? Are they going to start, if they start sticking tariffs on us? I think under World Trade Organization rules, the maximum they can put on is 5% on tariffs. Well, okay, if they want to be silly about that, then you're going to have a tit for tat situation. That's what Trump's been doing with all the obscene, imbalanced rules the United States has been weighed down by for years, and he's just rebalancing. They hate it, but America's been ripped off for what they have some tariffs of 30-50% and all sorts of crazy numbers. And the Americans have gone along with it, and it's depleted their economy. It's brought us, what happens in America affects us directly as well. So if the American economy crashes, well, we're all in trouble, aren't we? So he's only setting the balances correctly and right, but the lefties don't want that, because they want a crash. They want a revolution. Their utopia is having a revolution, right? So what Tony Abbott suggests is no tariff controls. Well, why do we need borders? To control, to change. What do we need to do checks for? Because we're having the same tariff arrangements. There's no need for checks, and this affects Northern Ireland as well, and the Irish Republic. One of the other things he said was basically citizenship rights. So basically, Europeans already living here can be offered, well, you can have, citizenship here. Why not have dual passports? What's wrong with that? You know, if you're a German worker living in Britain, you know, what's wrong with having dual passport? Why can't you have that? You're contributing to the economy. But you know what they're saying. What it basically is, people coming over after the Brexit, 29th of March. Then okay, you can still come over here and work, but you can't draw benefits. That's the only thing that we could say. And I think, I don't know about you, but this sort of what they call the divorce bill, which is, what is it, 59 billion? Oh, it's a ridiculous, obscene amount. Why are we paying anything for it? Well, we shouldn't pay anything at all if it's world trade rules we're going by. But I don't think we should pay it anyway. Why should we? The sooner, I think the sooner this EU project collapses and we go back to national trades as it was. You can have little groups that have allegiance. You can have Germany and Netherlands and Holland, and Denmark, and they can form a little tiny group there. But the culture between, say, like Greece and Ireland, they're different. They're different. They have different cultures. It's not that one's better than the other. It's nice to have different cultures. It's nice to be able to go to another country in Europe and enjoy a different way of life and see how they do things. We don't all be the same, do we? You know, the whole point of culture is variety and diversity. You know, what the lefts want to do is to mix us all up with some grey sort of porridge type people. So having no hard border, with Ireland and no tariffs, it's just the same as between France and England, except we've got the channel in between us, haven't we? But why do we need to have these borders like that? You can have a mutual arrangement. We could say, okay, EU citizens can come to our country and visit us as much as they like. We get Japanese tourists coming into Britain. They don't get sort of discriminated against, do they? And people do get visas to come and work over in Britain. If you're a hospital worker or something, or you're on some contract work, an engineer or something, arrangements are made and people go to work here. Same as the United States. If there's a demand for a electrical expert or something, and they want them, they can get across there. That's what visas are for. Nothing wrong with that. So that's my little short video for now. Until the next one.